the Minister for Health the need for specialist oncologist support for patients with sarcoma to retain at St Vincent's Hospital Dublin. Deputy Billy Keller, 4 minutes.
Minister, I recently had correspondence from a sarcoma patient, and I don't want to divulge the name of the patient, even though she has subsequently, raised this issue on social media. But it was quite a distressing email in many ways. As the Minister should be aware, sarcoma is a fairly rare type of cancer, and it accounts for about 5% of all cancers. And we presently have about 250 patients who present with this disease every year in Ireland. The sarcoma patient has been attending a particular doctor in St Vincent's. The doctor has specialised in this type of cancer and has over 300 patients in her care as we speak. And now the patients are horrified to learn that this talented, hard-working, knowledgeable doctor is being let go by St Vincent's, and the patients feel that the proposed replacement, while vastly experienced, does not have the sarcoma expertise of the departing doctor and also has a very busy private practice. In short, 300 patients are sceptical that they can get the same care and attention that they currently get. St Vincent's Hospital Dublin is in the privileged position to have a wonderful resource, a centre of excellence in the treatment of sarcoma in its oncology unit, through a particular consultant who is among the few worldwide experts in the treatment of sarcoma. This centre of excellence, which has been established over the past 3 years, has given treatment and hope to hundreds of sarcoma patients, enhancing survival rates and in many cases making survival possible where previously little hope was given. The patients feel that this kind of expertise in such a rare cancer takes years and years and years of research and experience. Regrettably, this is about to change when the contract of this invaluable resource is to be terminated. The patients do not seek to comment on the contractual issues of any member of the HSE, but to highlight how the loss of this expert resource will impact on the care and treatment in the future. This level of knowledge and experience and expertise of sarcoma cannot be replaced by an expert in another field of cancer, yet it seems that this is about to happen. The patients are frightened for the future, and I just quote from one email I received. Having finally found a place that feels safe and offers so much hope, it is now about to be taken away, not just from us 300 of today's 300 sufferers, but next year's 200 plus and the year after, unquote. They are frightened now, and they want to keep this particular oncologist and expert in sarcoma. And if we continue, we are confident that we can see the survival rates improve to secure the future lives of so many children, young adolescents about to embark on life that they have every right to enjoy. And I suppose, Minister, the point I'm trying to make here is, the patients that have received excellent treatment in St Vincent's are very concerned that this particular expert in this area, who's built up a wealth of knowledge and experience over many, many years, his contract is about to be terminated. And they do not believe that the replacement can bring the same level of support and service that they require and need in what is a very challenging disease and illness, and is life-limiting in many cases. But they found, as I said, quoting from the email itself, having finally found a place that feels safe and offers so much hope, it is now about to be taken away.
Thank you very much, Ciarán, and I welcome the opportunity to speak this evening about sarcoma services at St Vincent's University Hospital in Dublin, and I thank Deputy Kelleher for raising this important matter. Sarcomas are rare malignant tumours that arise from transformed cells of the connective tissues such as muscle, fat, cartilage or bone, and I acknowledge that people who have been diagnosed with sarcoma or any other serious illness will of course be concerned that they receive the best care and best treatment, and that's a concern that I share. Services for the management of these patients with sarcoma are currently provided, as the Deputy says, in St Vincent's Hospital in Dublin and also in Cork University Hospital. The multidisciplinary team in St Vincent's Hospital has all of the relevant specialities represented, including surgery, medical oncology, radiation oncology, radiology and pathology. Recently, a consultant medical oncologist was employed by St Vincent's Hospital on a locum contract to provide cover for one of the other consultant medical oncologists who had taken up the role as chair of the Irish Clinical Oncology Research Group. This consultant has now returned to his post at the hospital. The reasons for employing the locum has now ceased. That locum was only ever, filling a role on a temporary basis, while the consultant medical oncologist took up the role as chair of the research group. I am assured, and I've made inquiries about this because I've been contacted by a number of people, I am assured by the HSE that care for patients undergoing treatments for sarcoma cancer at St Vincent's Hospital will not be compromised in any way, and their management will be provided by one of the hospital's full-time oncologists. In relation to sarcoma services nationally, a national clinical lead in soft tissue sarcomas has been appointed to oversee the services for patients with sarcomas. All Irish patients with sarcoma have their cases presented and discussed at one of the two sarcoma multidisciplinary teams. The HSE's National Cancer Control Programme, established in 2007, has reorganised and expanded cancer services to achieve better outcomes for patients and has moved the system of care to one that consolidates cancer treatment in larger centres with multidisciplinary care and decision making. These services are provided regardless of income, age and location. Long-term survival rates for all cancers has improved markedly, with 5-year survival rates increasing from 57% for patients diagnosed between 2003 to 2007 to 61% for patients diagnosed between 2008 to 2012. It is expected that survival rates will thankfully increase further due to the combined approach of screening, symptomatic detection and improved treatment. My department is currently working on a new national cancer strategy for the next decade. This will build on the progress made through the implementation of the two previous strategies. Areas of focus are likely to include prevention, early diagnosis, further improvements in treatments, rare cancers, survivorship and high-quality, patient-centred care. I intend to publish the new strategy in the coming months. As I said at the outset, I want to acknowledge the concerns people who have been diagnosed with sarcoma have in relation to their care. However, I wish to pass on the reassurances that I've been given by the HSE that there will be absolutely no reduction to the service provided by the St Vincent's University Hospital Oncology team, and I welcome the opportunity to clarify this issue this evening.
August.
The reply, I suppose there's two issues that come from the reply. The first being the reason for employing the locum has now ceased because of the return of the other consultant oncologist. But I suppose, Minister, the point I'm trying to make here, I suppose, on behalf of the patients that have contacted me is that the locum that is present there has provided a wonderful contribution. And I suppose rather than losing that expertise, that the locum would be maintained, and that the returning consultant oncologist, I'm quite sure, would have plenty of work in St Vincent's. And just on a comparative basis, I mean, the criteria for the care of sarcoma patients in England and Wales, for example, Minister, reads quite long compared to what we probably are offering in this country. A sarcoma medical group consisting of all specialities, including surgical, orthopaedic, medical oncologist, radiologist and pathology and oncology nursing, as well as rehabilitation services. At least one group member who belongs to a sarcoma-orientated medical organisation, such as the Connective Tissue Oncology Society. Publications concerning sarcoma in peer-reviewed journals. Sarcoma conferences, where sarcoma groups meet at least once per month to discuss patient issues. At least 50 sarcoma patients seen per year, MRI imaging and PET scans desired, patient enrolment in clinical trials, strong support personnel such as social workers, pathologists and psychiatrists, and sarcoma support groups where desired. The current doctor that I'm speaking about, Minister, has published a huge number of journals that prove her expertise in the treatment of this disease, and I know you're not questioning that. Publications 13 and citations 42. And I just believe that, you know, while there is an assurance given that the service won't be reduced, really what we want to try to do, Minister, is enhance the service. And if the locum could be maintained, well then, rather than just having maintaining the service, that we would actually enhance the service. So we would just convey the views that I've conveyed to you as those that have come from the patients themselves. Thanks, Minister.
No, I certainly will convey Deputy Kelleher's views to the HSE and the views that he's clearly representing on behalf of patients who've contacted him, which are very similar to the views that have been expressed to me by patients who've contacted me. I think there's no doubt from what the Deputy tells the House, and indeed from what I'm informed by patients as well, that this locum clearly did do an excellent job, and that is absolutely beyond question, and clearly had a very positive impact on patients and on patient care, and I acknowledge that. I'm very grateful for that. I suppose the point that I would make in the interest of clarity is that this was always a locum position, that the locum locum was filling in for another consultant oncologist who had undertaken a prestigious role as chair of the research group. The understanding was always that that locum would, by very nature of being a locum, would carry out the duties of the consultant oncologist until the consultant oncologist returned to his post. He's now done that. So I want to reassure patients this evening that the multidisciplinary team in St Vincent's University Hospital has all of the relevant specialities represented, including, as I said, surgery, medical oncology and radiation oncology, radiology and pathology. St Vincent's University Hospital has reassured the National Cancer Control Programme that patients' ongoing care and management will be provided by the hospital's oncology team and will not be in any way compromised during the handover period. However, I accept the broader point that Deputy Kelleher is making, which I think is valid, in terms of, is there a case to be made for an additional consultant's post with a special interest in the area of sarcoma? And this is a point that I have raised with the HSE, and I have been assured by the HSE that consideration is being given to appointing a permanent consultant medical oncologist with a special interest in the area of sarcoma. So this is something that I will revert to the Deputy on, but the HSE is actively considering it. I think it's also just important to point out the Deputy referenced international comparisons. Since the establishment of the Irish Sarcoma Group in 2014, we have, I think, strengthened and developed our national sarcoma services, and international links have now also been developed with specialist sarcoma centres in the UK, which the Deputy referenced, and also in Germany. And these international links, I think, are important to make sure we have best practice.
And next is on Teachta Cuimhin Ó Caoláin, the need for amending regulations to facilitate senior citizens in border counties in accessing long-term nursing home care in nearby facilities north of the border with a full entitlement under the Fair Deal scheme. The Teachta has 4 minutes.
And I want to record my thanks to the Count Corley for selecting my submitted topic for address today. I seek a commitment from the Minister for Health to facilitate the right of access to the nursing home of their choice for older people in need of long-term residential care whose home address is on this side of the border, but whose nearest or preferred nursing home is situated on the northern side of the border. It is the case that prior to the introduction of the Fair Deal scheme, older people in need of residential care could take up unhindered residence in nursing home facilities in the six-county area of our country. For people from my constituency of counties Cavan and Monaghan, particularly those from communities that don't just run along the border strip, but that straddle the border, just as they have straddled the inter-county lines over many, many generations, this is an important issue. Pre-Fair Deal subvention travelled with the older person. With the advent of Fair Deal, a partition descended once again in our midst, turning lifelong friends and neighbours away from each other, forcing older people whose residence is located south of the border to look to very often more distant locations from their home for residential care in their own county or in neighbouring counties. This is, in my opinion, discriminatory and grossly unfair. It also ignores the important role these north of the border facilities have and could play again in helping meet the ever-growing demand of our ageing population. We have excellent nursing homes in County Monaghan, both public and private. What we have not is sufficient capacity. However, the core issue that I am pressing is the right of choice and access, if preferred, to a nursing home that lies closest to one's own home, family, extended family, friends and neighbours. This is neither an irrational nor an unreasonable request. What we need is a revisitation of the terms of the Nursing Home Support Scheme, the Fair Deal scheme, to provide for older people in the circumstances that I have described, respecting their and their families' choice and wishes. Whatever the outcome of the referendum today in Britain and in the north of Ireland, surely we in this jurisdiction should be lifting borders, not imposing them. I appeal to the Minister to respect the rights and wishes of communities, families and older people in border area settings. They do not see their location as peripheral. They see only the hills, the roads, the features of their area that go way beyond an artificial border, and that has always failed to drive them apart from family, friends and neighbours in childhood, in adolescence, in adulthood, and that should not drive them apart in their later and dependent years. I ask the Minister to do the right thing and not to offer excuses for inaction. People want and deserve voices in politics that are solution-driven. And I ask you, Minister Harris, are you such a voice?
Thank you very much, Gairla. Well, I want to thank Deputy O'Quailon for raising this issue. I don't offer excuses as a cover for inaction, but I'm duty-bound, I suppose, to point out the factual and policy considerations that we need to discuss in relation to this issue. And I begin by agreeing with you in the hope that there aren't more borders in place tomorrow on the island of Ireland, and that the outcome of the referendum in relation to Britain's place in the European Union doesn't pose additional difficulties, because I think there's been a lot of good developments in terms of the cross-border development of our health service in recent years, and I'm eager to continue that. I'm taking this debate this evening on behalf of my colleague, the Minister of State in the Department of Health with the responsibility for older people, Helen McEntee, who is not available. Government policy, as the Deputy knows, is to support older people to remain in their own homes and in their communities for as long as possible. There will, however, always be a cohort of older people who require a quality long-term residential care option. The Nursing Home Support Scheme, or Fair Deal as it's more commonly known, is a system of financial support for those assessed as needing long-term nursing home care, regardless of their age. Participants contribute to the cost of their care according to their means, while the state pays the balance of the cost. The scheme aims to ensure that long-term nursing home care is accessible and affordable for everyone, and that people are cared for in the most appropriate setting. The applicant is free to choose any public, voluntary or approved private nursing home in the state. Of course, the home must have availability and be able to cater for the applicant's particular needs. The scheme has a net budget in 2016 of €940 million. This represents an increase of €43.1 million on the 2015 outturn. It is expected that the scheme will provide financial support to 23,450 clients on average per week this year. The scheme has a statutory basis and is governed by the Nursing Home Support Scheme Act of 2009. It replaced the scheme of the Nursing Home Subvention, which had been in existence since 1993, and the system of contract beds and long stay charges in public nursing homes. In order to be eligible to apply for the scheme, an applicant must be ordinarily resident in the state. This means that they're living in the state for at least a year or intends to live in the state for at least a year. The Nursing Home Support Scheme, as the Deputy highlights, does not extend to nursing homes in Northern Ireland, and it would not be possible, I'm informed, to include facilities outside of this jurisdiction in key elements of the scheme. For example, prices payable under the scheme are negotiated by the National Treatment Purchase Fund. Such facilities are subject to regulation by the Health Information and Equality Authority, HIQA, and obviously HIQA has no jurisdiction within Northern Ireland. I am informed that this issue was given careful consideration before the scheme was introduced in 2009, and the decision not to extend the scheme to Northern Ireland was taken by the government of the day in 2009 on the basis of legal advice received from the Office of the Attorney-General. So, whilst my response is somewhat negative, the rationale behind it is based on the legal advice of the Attorney-General at the time to the government of 2009, issues in relation to how does one ensure qualities and standards when HIQA doesn't have jurisdiction, obviously in Northern Ireland, and then a number of other points which I've already outlined. Having said that, I have had an excellent conversation with my counterpart in Northern Ireland, your party colleague, the new Minister for Health in Northern Ireland, Michelle O'Neill. We had an excellent and constructive conversation on Monday about areas of cooperation, cross-border cooperation. As you know, there's quite a lot being done in relation to children with heart conditions. There's also plans to do more in relation to organ donation, and I would very much welcome the opportunity to discuss a range of issues with Minister O'Neill, and I look forward to meeting her in Dublin on the 4th of July, and I'm certainly happy to discuss this matter with the Minister, but I do need to place very serious caution in terms of the difficulties that I'm informed currently exist.
Thanks. On the Choctaw.
Well, Minister, I knew the Attorney-General would be cited in your reply. Indeed, it was the single-line response I got to a recent parliamentary question that I tabled on the same issue, and it is most unsatisfactory. We had a situation up to the introduction of Fair Deal where people in my communities, and I live very close to the border, but there are people who actually live very much closer and for whom the natural gravitas is to the little community hall, the facility, the nursing home facility, the church, and all of the other facilities that make up an identifiable, unique community. They want to be able to stay with their friends and relatives, people that they've spent a lifetime engaging with in all of the different facets of life, and yet they're being forced apart because they can't afford to pay for the entirety of the cost of their care, the fair deal being an essential element for access. We have got to get to a can-do situation in relation to this matter. This anomaly, this discriminatory situation has only arisen in the past 7 odd years. And I do believe that it is essential that it is placed in a priority position for the engagement that you've referred to. I welcome that planned engagement with Minister Michelle O'Neill, a very experienced minister, formerly the Minister for Agriculture in the last administration in the Assembly. And I would strongly urge you, leaving aside political difference and the jibing that can take place in this chamber, I'm urging you, I'm appealing to you, because I could name these people that I am thinking of as I stand before you here today making this appeal. It is in their interest and their families' interest that they are allowed to remain in their final years, whatever time that they're granted, within where they want to be in the first instance, and also reasonable access for their loved ones and those who would visit them, which is part of the essential care and provision for people who are placed in long-stay residential facilities. So, Minister, I'm not going to get into a battle axe approach with you over this. What I'm asking you, and I am urging you most sincerely, is to recognise the reality of the constituents of whom I am thinking of. You may not be able personally to identify with them because it's not the experience of where you represent, but I'm asking you for the empathy that will open the door to resolve this vexed matter.
Thank you very much. I'm the Minister for Health for people in all parts of this country, so I'm very sympathetic to the point that you're making, Deputy O'Quailon, on behalf of your constituents. But I wanted to highlight, I suppose, the challenges and difficulties that we face in this regard. And these aren't new challenges, they're not new difficulties, and they don't come as any great surprise to you as an experienced deputy in this House, because they were highlighted, considered and debated in this House in 2009. And 7 years later, I suppose, you're still highlighting and debating them here with me this evening. These were issues that were considered in great detail by the then government in 2009, by the Attorney General, and I'm sure subjected to a significant debate in this House with different views on different sides. So the issues are not straightforward and they're not simple. If they were, this, as you call it, anomaly would never have arisen in the first place. But what I will give you an undertaking to do is engage with Minister O'Neill on this issue as one of a number of issues, and she has identified some and I have identified some that we would like to talk about. How can we support each other's health system and support citizens on the island of Ireland in terms of ensuring that they can get the best outcome from the health service. So when I meet Minister O'Neill in Dublin in July, I will certainly, as I'm sure you will with her as your colleague, raise this as an issue, and I'm more than happy for discussions to take place. But I am obviously duty bound again to highlight the challenges in terms of both the National Treatment Purchase Fund and changes that have occurred in recent years. The development of HICWA, which wasn't an issue in previous years, the fact that we've got to ensure proper quality and safety for patients. HICWA doesn't have jurisdiction in Northern Ireland. That would be a concern, I know, for you, who's been a great advocate of patient safety in this House. We need to get this right, I suppose. So I will undertake to engage with Minister O'Neill on the issue, and I'll undertake to keep in contact with you. And I'm not unsympathetic to the point that you make, but I don't have a ready-made solution for it this evening. But I will certainly engage with my counterpart in Northern Ireland and keep in touch with you.
We're just going to pause for a few moments before the next small debate.